Mike here at CBI Off-Road. Today we're going to be installing our overland skid plates on a T3 Tacoma. Let's get started. Alright, so first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and remove our skid plates. As you can see, ours are already removed. There are a couple brackets that are bolted up in here, and we've already removed those, but you're going to want to go ahead and take those out too. Keep all your factory hardware because we are going to be reusing that. Our hook here can stay, and the end pieces here, as long as we're only doing skid plates. All right, so if we're doing full skids, we're going to go ahead and remove these braces here because our skids do come and sit flush along here. So we're going to remove these. They're just 4 12mm bolts, and we'll remove those real quick. All right, so one of the other things we're going to do to get ready to install these, if we are doing a full set of skids, is this brake line bracket right here. This bolt's going to need to come out, and it's got this small hook here. Our bracket's going to slide up underneath that, so we can either cut that off right there, or you can just kind of bend it up out of the way, but we're going to cut ours. All right, so once we got everything prepared, all of our skids removed, brackets removed, and things like that, we can go ahead and start putting skid plates on. You can start it doesn't really matter whether it's the front skid you put on first or you start with the rear skid. They both go together. Neither one interferes with the other. So let's go ahead and start that. So we're going to start with installing our front skid. This one is aluminum, so it's pretty light. If it's steel, you're definitely probably going to want to have a friend there to help you out. But this one's pretty light being aluminum, so we'll go ahead and set this one up in place. Again, we are reusing our factory hardware. They are just a 17mm head in the 4 front holes. We are going to want to leave it loose just for adjustments between the 2 skids meeting up together, just so they're not kind of interfering with one or the other. When we're reusing our factory hardware, we got 2 smaller bolts going on the back. They're 12mm head. You go ahead and put those back in. With our front skid installed, our back brace across the back is going to be the next thing we're going to install. It's going to go in right where our brake line was. We're going to slide that up, and then there's going to be some small stickers on these holes. It's going to be this little bit larger one above the small one that will provide a nut and a bolt and a washer for it. And on the brake line side, the factory bolt through there is a little bit short, so we send another longer bolt with, or you can use the longer bolts that came out of the original braces that we took off. So let's go ahead and set that up in place. All right, and that guy can just kind of hang out there for a minute until we get the other skid up in place, and it'll kind of push this up in place once we start tightening everything down. And then we'll go through and we'll tighten those 2 side bolts. So we're getting ready to put our rear skid on. You may need a friend or somebody to help hold this up there, or something similar like a jack stand, a jack, depending on how you're doing it. I just have this single post here, and we'll go ahead and slide this end over, let that rest there. And then we're going to go ahead and start putting our 4 carriage bolts in these holes. Put that in there. And then I've already set the nut up inside the brace, and we'll put that across. And we'll finish putting the rest of them in there. Once you got one in, it should just hold itself up there in place. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and put the bolts in on the front, then we can pull our stand out, and we can finish putting the rest of them in. So the front, we're gonna have some 4-inch carriage bolts, some flat washers, and then obviously the nut. We'll go ahead and put those in. Now that we got the front and the rear carriage bolts in place, we can go ahead and sit our middle ones in. We're gonna some 4-inch carriage bolts again, flat washer, nut. So these are gonna slide right up in and through this center cross support here. Set those in. So once we got all of our carriage bolts in there and everything's ready to be tightened down, it's just going to be a 9/16 nut on all 8 of the rear skid bolts, and so we'll go ahead and start tightening those down. So once we got the 8 carriage bolts on the rear skid all tightened up, now we can go ahead and tighten up our cross member here on each side, and then we can move on to the front skid. All right, so once we got the rear skid all set in place and held down, we can go ahead and start putting our front skid tightened down. I'm just going to start with these back ones. I just kind of pulled the skid back as far as it'll go, butt it up against our rear skid. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these up. Once we got all the skids on, we're going to go ahead and put our plates on. You're going to have some small button heads to hold these on that are countersunk to it. I do have a little bit of anti-seize on there to just help prevent them from rusting or anything in there. And they are going to be a 3/16 Allen head. All right, so that takes care of our T3 overland skids. If you have any questions or concerns about your installs, you can give us a call here, CBI Offroad, or email us. Thanks.